We do have Kleenex up here. If there's any weeping, we are prepared. Okay. Congratulations, Ellie. You deserve it. Okay, we're going to the Publishers Award next. Publishers Award goes to those publishers who keep getting the word out. Your words. Where would we be without them? This year's winner is Caitlin Press, and the presenter is our friend Dennis E. Boland. Dennis, whom many of you know, but I will read a little bio for him. In a writing career spanning 3 decades, Dennis has published 5 novels and 2 collections of short fiction. He holds an MFA in creative writing and taught for 2 years at UBC. Dennis's arts advocacy is widely known. His first book of poems, Black Liquor, was issued by Caitlin Press in 2013. Please welcome Dennis Boland to the stage.
Thank you, Sean. A long time ago in a little snowbound cabin up around Prince George, an idea for a feminist press was born. But they did actually have an emphasis on wilderness stories and the killing of animals and things like that. Caitlin Press went on to etch itself an indelible place in the grand small press tradition of British Columbia. It's become an absolute stalwart of the alternative press and the mainstream reading interest of the general public. They still keep going with their wilderness stories. Some of if you look in the Vancouver Sun bestseller lists, the average weekend, they've got at least 1, sometimes 2 or 3 books that are sitting there. And they're publishing almost anybody these days. They publish me. They are an exemplary press. They actually accepted my manuscript in less than a week, which is, I think it's got to be some kind of record. They are, their list is expansive. I won't go into it. You can just Google what the backlist is, and what even just their current yearly output is amazing. They're putting out my friend June Hutton's new book. It just came out, I think, a few weeks ago. They are about to publish the long-awaited poetry collection of Timothy Shea, who was a mainstay of the Kootenai School of writing. He hasn't put a book out in 30 years, so this is going to be really quite something. And it's great. It's great that the press is involved in this. If you have the pleasure of knowing the wonderful, wonderful lady who runs Caitlin Press these days, she might invite you up to her expansive estate up on the Sunshine Coast, where she might, if you ask her nicely, tour you through the enormous metal freight container that she's had hauled up onto her property. And she has very carefully insulated the inside of it, probably all by herself with a spray thing, with the mask on and all the rest of it. And she wired the whole place up so it's got heat and electricity and light, etc. And this thing is full to the ceiling with books. Books everywhere. Books from the past, books of the present, and very soon books of the future. There's tiny little alleyways that you can walk amongst the towers of books. It is a shrine to books. She is a paragon of what we look for in publishers these days. She searches for the great books, and she enthusiastically supports writers. So, please help me present this award to the wonderful Caitlin Press and Vicki Johnson.
Last weekend I was called a whirlwind and a hurricane and a tornado, and this week it's a paragon. Thanks, Dennis. And thank you to the Pandora Collective, the Word Vancouver, and Bonnie Nish for recognizing Caitlin Press with this award. It's certainly been a whirlwind year, and this award was a wonderful surprise when we got the email. So thank you very much. I feel like so incredibly honored, and actually I almost feel like my speech is going to be too long, so I'm going to try and truncate it a bit for you. I feel so incredibly honored to be here tonight, and most importantly, really proud of Caitlin Press and those who have helped me revive this struggling publishing house. And there are very, very many people to thank. And I would like to start with thanking the people that helped me do the hardcore work. My amazing staff, Kathleen, Rebecca, Holly, Andrea, and Ben. These 5 people have happily contributed their time and their knowledge and never once complained that each season just gets bigger and bigger than the last. And nor do they complain about the ever-growing collection of 4-legged critters that share our office. It's one thing that Dennis didn't mention. We've got cats and dogs and ferrets running around, and so they've been very patient. I'd also like to acknowledge the editors that have guided me along the way. I mean, where are we without our editors? And thank them for teaching me about such fun things as the correct usage as the 4-dot ellipses. And when to use an open em dash rather than a closed em dash. Well, who would have thought that was important? But it is. Thank you. So, since buying Caitlin Press, I have published more than 100 new books and well over 200 authors. So what that means is it's a really long list of authors to thank, and I can't possibly mention all of them and all of you, and I hope that you all know that we love you at Caitlin Press. I meant to grab my glass of wine. What I'd like to say is to the 300 plus authors that have been published by Caitlin Press since the last 38 years, I thank you. I thank you for your faith. And I thank you for your words. And so I'd like to toast to every single one of you, but I forgot to bring my wine. So to the authors and to you guys. But I would actually like to just go back a little bit and give you a little bit of history about Caitlin Press. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the 2 women that actually came before me. I've owned Caitlin Press for almost 8 years now, but the press is actually one of the oldest publishing houses in British Columbia. It was actually started in 1977 by Carolyn Zanelos, who was a young poet who decided that Vancouver, actually, not Prince George, sorry, Dennis, you should have shared notes, she decided that Vancouver needed its own feminist literary press. And true to her intent of her mandate, she named her new company after another feminist, Caitlin Thomas, who was the wife of Dylan Thomas. So those of you who wonder, that's where Caitlin Press is about. When I purchased Caitlin, I contacted Carolyn Zanelos, and we spoke for hours about the origins of the press and the feminist works that were so important to her and her colleagues. She told me that while many of the publishers across Canada at the time were publishing women, male writers and poets still dominated the Canadian literary canon. She thought it was time to change that. So with the encouragement of some of her fellow poets, such as Patrick Lane and Ken Belford, actually, Carolyn founded Caitlin Press as a vehicle to publish the voices of women writers in Canada. So for the next 15 years, Carolyn published more than 20 writers, and she also contributed to the literary community in other ways, helping to found the Federation of BC Writers and the BC Book Prizes. But in 1991, Cynthia Wilson, who was teaching at Caledonian College in Prince George, heard from her brother and publisher Howard White that Carolyn was moving on and had put Caitlin Press up for sale. Cynthia and her partner Ken Carling were fairly excited by the idea of becoming publishers, and they were looking for a change of pace. They didn't, I don't think, know what they were getting into, but they decided to buy the press. And Cynthia took on the role of the publisher, editor, and project manager, and Ken managed the accounting. And both of them continued to work full-time to support their new endeavor, while continuing to publish in the evenings and weekends, I expect. So devoted to the central interior, Cynthia chose to shift the mandate away from the feminist mandate and to reflect the lives and culture of the central and northern communities of our province, while continuing to support BC women. Over the next 14 years, she added close to 50 titles to Caitlin Press, and she developed over 100 authors. Ken Carling unfortunately died in the early 2000s, and a couple years later, Cynthia retired from teaching and decided to move back to the Sunshine Coast, where she had grown up, and where she knew that she would have the support of her family and Harbor Publishing, who was run by her brother, Howard White. She bought a home in Half Moon Bay, really just actually right around the corner from me, ironically, and within about maybe 10 houses. But unfortunately, Cynthia never got the chance to live her dream of dedicating herself full-time to the press. On May 13th, 2005, approximately 2 weeks after she moved to the Sunshine Coast in Half Moon Bay, she passed away very suddenly and very unexpectedly, leaving the press without a publisher and basically without a home. The entire writing community of Prince George went into mourning for Cynthia Wilson. They came out to a memorial service held in her honor, and they, one by one, took turns at the mic expressing how grateful they were for her contributions. I was not at that memorial service, but I was invited to attend a meeting in Prince George shortly after I bought Caitlin Press. I met many of the authors who had been published by Cynthia, and I was moved by their commitment and their love and dedication for Cynthia Wilson, who was, in their mind, nothing short of a hero and a central tier. So I ultimately owe a great debt of gratitude to these two women for laying such a strong foundation of dedicated readers, authors, who continue to support and help me revive the press. So, to bring you up to date, I began my career in books at Harvard Publishing in 2002. I'd always worked in the arts. I was a mic rat in the theater for 18 years, and I worked at CBC, and I just did a little bit of everything. Many times I tried to go back to, I tried to get out of the arts because I thought maybe that there was a real job out there at some point that would pay the rent and pay the mortgage and let me spend time with his son, but I always ended up going right back into something. But I had just finished up a job working as a producer on a children's educational software project, and when Howard White from Harvard Publishing called me to see if I'd be interested in applying for a job at Harvard Publishing. And I remember the day that Howard offered me the job as the production manager, and I said I was pretty nervous because, well, I was a voracious reader, and I had been all my life. My parents used to take us to the library on Sundays, and we would come home with stacks of books from the time we were little children. It became clear to me that I didn't know anything about actually making books, and I told him that, and he laughed, and he said that, don't worry, I'll teach you everything you need to know. And he did. Howard, in fact, actually taught me so much more than how to make a book. He taught me how to publish a book. He taught me